Yeah, yeah. This podcast interview I just did just before this one was
Mhm.
with a young woman who's a productivity expert and really interesting to talk to. Her name's Kadira Muhammad. And basically, she was just talking about the fact that for people of her generation, um, they are much more likely to think about going into business for themselves because there's this belief that there's no way they're ever going to be able to retire, and the old way of doing careers just isn't going to work for them. What would you say? What kind of advice would you give to people they've been through university and they've been working for a couple of years, but they're just looking at the world and going, what would you say to people who might be considering creating their own business or becoming speech therapists, and how they might be able to help and also make a living at it?
Absolutely. I mean, being a speech therapist, I never in a million years thought that I would leave the school system because I was paying into state teachers retirement, which is a retirement system. But I left, I'm going to leave all my money in there so I will get something someday. So I don't think everybody has this inner little voice that says, you should do this. This is a vision. I think I've always had that entrepreneurial spirit. I grew up playing the harp, so I would play the harp for events. I did that for 20 years. And I didn't think of myself as being an entrepreneur because Gary Vee wasn't around and people weren't talking about all those types of things. But this is always how I've done things. I've always had a vision of how I want to do things. And I've always picked workplaces where people really didn't bother me. I was considered a specialist and I did my thing. So if you're doing your job and you feel like you're completely fulfilled and you can leave at the end of the day and be done with it, that's great. But if you have a bigger vision and you want to see what you can do, just be responsible. Like, I have a lawyer, I have an accountant, like I save for my retirement. I have ideas on how I can make money when I'm no longer in this role and position. And I used to work just so many hours, probably 50 hours a week when I was doing both my job and my business. And now I'm working like 25 hours a week. I mean, that's not bad. I get to work out every day. I get my kids on the bus. I make them dinner. I run them to their activities. My life is, I'm not saying I'm retired, but I'm just saying I have a really nice quality of life and this is how I want to live it.